So now we just talked about, what makes the VA loan such a good loan, and what I want to say, or the VA hybrid loan, such a good, safe loan, even though it has aspects of the ARM, has all the good aspects of the ARM, has all the good aspects of the 30-year fix. But what I love talking about, I love taking typical human understanding and flipping it upside down and letting people realize where they're so wrong. It's not often I try to prove people wrong, but it's important that we understand all of the negatives. We've already talked about the negatives about the ARM, the bad ARM. Do you guys know that there are, here's my art again, okay, negatives, okay, on the 30-year fixed. Now this gets a lot, I don't know what that is. This gets a lot of people thinking, 30-year fixed. I do recall one of you guys telling me at the beginning that on a 30-year fixed rate, your payment stays the same forever. Remember I told you we were coming to that? Mm-hmm. This is where we're going to take everything you think you know about the 30-year fixed rate and turn it inside out, flip it upside down, and correct you. Let's talk about all of the negatives with a 30-year fix. Now, unless I've kind of hinted to something already, or you guys know more than the average person, you might struggle to help me come up with a list. But can anybody think of something that's negative about the 30-year fixed?
The interest that you pay up front is so much greater than the principal you're paying off at the beginning of the loan.
True. Very true. We'll talk about that. On a 30-year fixed rate, you pay almost your entire payment towards interest. At least a much greater portion of your payment is interest, and you're very rarely are you paying off any principal. I like to do these pie charts. Again, bear with me. Everything in blue, we're going to call that interest, okay? We all know interest is bad. Credit cards are bad. High interest rates are bad. And everything in green, principal. Now, I'm not talking about your principal at school. My kid started school today, so I'm thinking about school. Principal's the balance. So if I buy a home for $200,000, my principal balance on day one is $200,000. Let's just say I make a $2,000 payment. A lot of people think, well, hey, if I sent the bank $2,000, my balance is going to go down by $2,000, and therefore I'm going to owe $198,000. That sure would be nice, because $2,000 is out of my bank account, and it's now with the mortgage company. Well, I'm here to tell you, this is not math, this is just an illustration. Of your $2,000, your balance is probably going down to $199,900. Okay? Wait a second. I paid $2,000, and I only paid off my balance by $100. Where'd the other $1,900 go? It's all this blue stuff. It's interest. Interest is the enemy. So we talk about how on an adjustable rate loan, your interest rate's around 1.5 to 2 points lower. Though that may not seem like a lot, when you look at a pie chart, again, illustration purposes only, but if you look at a pie chart for an ARM loan, that's kind of not really a pie chart, but it's going to look more like this. Still quite a bit in interest. More than half is probably going towards interest, or close to half. Again, illustration-wise, look at how much more I'm paying down on principal. If this were an ARM loan, it would be closer to $199,100. $900 went towards principal. Again, illustration purposes only. Your loan officer here at Low VA Rates can run you through some real-life scenarios and can compare. Matter of fact, I think what I'll do real quick, I got these charts sitting here, and I didn't have this memorized, but ultimately what this shows us, if I took I'm going to write it up here so you guys can see it all nice and good. These are real numbers. These are not fake numbers here. Okay? If I took two loans, okay, there's a $250,000 fixed rate at 4.25% fixed, okay, versus a $250,000 2.25% hybrid ARM. I'm comparing the two side by side. You get the $250,000 4.25%. You get the $250,000 2.25%, and you guys make payments for the next 3 years. Your payment, who did I say was going to be fixed? What did you say you're fixed over here? Your payment at 4.25% fixed will be $1,222 a month. Okay, so you're paying $1,222 a month. just principal and interest. We're not talking taxes here. You are going to be paying $955 a month. Same house, same $250,000 house. So you're paying around $266 a month lower payment. That's one of those immediate benefits of the ARM. Who wouldn't like to live in the same house that their neighbor's living in and be able to go tell them every night, $260 less for me to live in my house than you in your house, right? That's what I'm talking about. But watch this. At the end of 3 years, this loan, the safe, 30-year fixed, stable loan, the balance at the end of 3 years will be $236,000 and some change. $236,000. So you paid down about $14,000 in principal over 3 years. If I had a calculator right now, I want to do the math. You paid out a heck of a lot more than $14,000. You're paying that every single year, basically. You've been in the house for 3 years. This loan, the ARM, at the end of 3 years, your balance will be $231,000. You both were in the same house. Your $260 a month that you were able to go on vacation with, pay for your kids to go to school with, put in your pocket, take it to Vegas, do what you want with, you just blew it. You still have $5,000 in additional equity, or your balance is $5,000 less. I like to drive this point home one other way. Let's say, sir, you didn't want to just blow the $260 a month, but instead, you said, well, I can afford a $1,222 payment. I'm going to keep paying $1,222, even though the bill to the bank is only $955, and this is where light bulbs just start going off. If I could draw a light bulb, I would, but I'm not going to try it. Ding, 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 the aha moment. Your balance would actually be, I'm going to do it real big because it's great, $218,000. In 3 years, your balance would go all the way down to $218,000 if you paid the same payment she paid. How fair is that? Now, who do you think's behind this? I'm going to ask you guys a question. Who do you think? We've talked about how the banks. We've talked about how we all think because of the news, because of what our parents taught us, because of whatever reason, we think this is such a safe loan. It's so smart. Okay, well, you paid the bank tons of interest. The bank still owns most of your house because you haven't paid the balance down hardly at all. If you go to the ARM loan and you actually harness the power of these low interest rates for $1,222 a month, you've paid your balance down by over $30,000 in 3 years, and it didn't cost you one more dime than it cost your neighbor. I asked, who do you think's behind this? If I'm a banker, if I'm a bad, greedy banker, okay, because I am a banker, I own low VA rates. But if I'm a banker and I'm lending somebody money, and I know based on Fannie Freddie statistics, based on reality that people refinance their home every 3 to 5 years. But in their mind, and because of fear, they felt like, I need this safe, stable, 30-year fixed rate. And I could sell them the exact same house, but I could convince them, pay me a higher interest rate. Do you think I'm going to do that?
Of course.
That's what Wall Street's doing. I will blame it on Wall Street. I won't blame it on the banks. And this is, again, just for illustration purposes. There's a lot of good bankers. All the bad guys are gone. The housing collapse took care of that. There's good, solid people in the mortgage industry. A lot of them don't offer the hybrid ARM because they don't understand it themselves and they don't want to sell it to somebody that if they don't understand it. We know it inside and out. We are experts here at Low Variance. Just ask us. We'll talk to you about it. It's a much better loan. But Wall Street and the greedy bankers, back to my example, they're just counting their money, laughing all the way to the bank because we've convinced ourselves so that I can feel good at night, even though I'm going to refinance my home 3 to 5 years from now, or I'm going to sell it, or something's going to happen, I'll go ahead and pay you $260 more every single month just so I can feel good. And this is true. Now, you can look to the north, to Canada. You can go across the ocean to Europe. And I'm here to tell you, go do your own research. We are one of the only developed nations in the world that pushes the 30-year fixed rate as high as we do. Look, if you've ever been to Canada, their economy is not a whole lot different than ours. There's not much difference. If you were to fall asleep, somebody drove you in a van across the border in Canada, you woke up the next morning, other than maybe some Canadian accents, you wouldn't know you were somewhere else. Right. They didn't have a housing collapse. Did anybody ever tell you that? Did you ever think, wait, why did our country implode with housing prices just went through the floor and everybody was underwater, and it didn't happen in Canada? Well, they didn't have the liar loans, for one. And I'll tell you, in all these other countries that I've been referring to, adjustable rate mortgages are not frowned upon. They're not scary. They're actually normal. Another thing I'll tell you about Wall Street, if anybody knows successful investors or commercial developers, the extremely wealthy people in this country, they don't use 30-year fixed mortgages when they're buying apartment buildings, when they're building hotels, when they're acquiring large pieces of assets. They don't use 30-year fixed rates. Now, why is that? Main Street, which is us, normal Joe and Jane homeowner, we get pushed 30-year fixed, 30-year fixed. It's on the radio, it's on the billboards, because it's safe. Why are all the people that are making all the money and that are successful in the world's terms, why are they not using 30-year fixed rate mortgages? Because they know what I'm teaching you today. It's not as smart of a vehicle for accomplishing what you want to accomplish. So I love talking about everything that's wrong with the 30-year fixed. It works for some people. I'm not suggesting we don't do 30-year fixed either. We do. I personally do not like them as much as I do a VA hybrid ARM loan if utilized correctly.